By day, Daniel was just the quiet janitor who swept floors and emptied trash. Most people passed him by without even a glance, barely noticing the man behind the mop. But behind those tired eyes and calloused hands lay a gift no one could have imagined, until the day a simple joke revealed a secret that left an entire room in tears. Daniel's mornings began before the sun even thought about rising. He would quietly slip out of the small apartment he shared with his 8-year-old daughter, Emily, making sure not to wake her. Her soft breathing was often the only thing that kept him going, a reminder of why he worked so hard. He'd walk down the cracked pavement in his worn shoes, the air cold against his face, and make his way to the tall glass building where he worked as a janitor. Inside, the day always started the same. He pushed his mop bucket across the marble floors, gathering discarded coffee cups, wiping away muddy footprints, and emptying overflowing bins. His uniform, a faded blue shirt with his name stitched above the pocket, hung loosely on his thin frame. People in suits hurried past him, too busy to notice, their voices filled with urgency about meetings, deals, and deadlines. To them, Daniel was part of the background, someone invisible, someone ordinary. But Daniel carried a weight no one else could see. He was a single father, raising Emily alone after his wife had passed away from an illness 2 years earlier. Grief was still etched into his face, though he tried to hide it. Bills piled up on the kitchen counter, rent was always a worry, and every paycheck was stretched thin to cover food, school supplies, and doctor visits. His dreams, those belonged to another lifetime. Once, he had loved music. As a teenager, he would sit at a piano for hours, losing himself in the melodies. His teachers had even said he had the talent to go far. But life had a way of changing paths. His family couldn't afford lessons, and later, responsibilities replaced passion. The piano keys he once touched daily now existed only in memory. Still, sometimes, late at night when Emily was asleep, he would hum those forgotten melodies to himself, like secret prayers carried in the dark. One chilly Thursday evening, Daniel was finishing his shift. The office was mostly empty, save for a few employees lingering after hours. He was wiping down tables in the grand lobby, where a beautiful black piano sat untouched in the corner. It wasn't there for use, more like an ornament, a symbol of wealth and class, meant to impress clients. Daniel's eyes lingered on it. He had walked past it countless times before, always fighting the urge to touch the keys. That night, though, his gaze held a little longer. Maybe it was exhaustion, maybe it was longing. Either way, one of the young employees noticed. "Hey, Daniel," the young man called out, smirking to his coworkers. "Why don't you play us something?" His tone was half joking, half mocking. The others chuckled, expecting Daniel to wave it off. After all, what could a janitor know about music? But Daniel didn't walk away. Instead, he stood still, his hands tightening around the rag he was holding. Something inside him stirred, a whisper from the past, a reminder of who he once was. Slowly, almost reluctantly, he set the rag aside and walked toward the piano. The group exchanged amused glances, ready to be entertained by what they assumed would be clumsy playing. No one expected much. To them, Daniel was just the janitor. He sat down quietly, his posture a little uncertain at first. His rough, calloused fingers hovered above the keys. For a moment, the room felt awkward, filled with muffled laughter and murmurs. But then, Daniel closed his eyes, drew in a breath, and pressed the first key. The sound that emerged silenced the room instantly. The notes were soft at first, tentative, like the whisper of a story beginning. But then, with each chord, Daniel's confidence grew. His fingers moved with surprising grace and precision, weaving melodies that were both haunting and beautiful. The employees who had once chuckled now stood frozen, their laughter fading into stunned silence. The music was unlike anything they expected, rich, emotional, filled with a depth that could only come from a life of hardship and love. The lobby, usually echoing with the sterile noise of footsteps and chatter, transformed into a concert hall. The melody rose, telling a story that words could not. It carried his grief for his wife, his struggles as a father, his quiet resilience, and his endless love for his daughter. Each note seemed to pour straight from his soul. As the music swelled, more people gathered. Workers leaving late stopped in their tracks, drawn to the sound. Security guards leaned in, wide-eyed. Even the CEO of the company, Mr. Harrison, who had been on his way out, paused at the top of the staircase. His expression softened, his eyes glistening as he listened. For Daniel, the piano was no longer an instrument, it was a lifeline. His pain, his hope, his love, all flowed through the keys. The building held its breath, every listener wrapped in the spell of his hidden gift. When the last note finally faded, the silence was profound. For a moment, no one moved, as if breaking the stillness would shatter the magic. Then, slowly, the lobby erupted in applause. Hands clapped, voices cheered, and people stood with awe written across their faces. Daniel looked down, his cheeks warm with embarrassment. He hadn't played for an audience in years, and he hadn't expected this reaction. To him, it was simply music, something that lived in his heart. But to everyone else, it was a revelation. Mr. Harrison, the CEO, stepped forward, his polished shoes clicking against the marble floor. "Daniel," he said, his voice unsteady with emotion, "that was extraordinary." His eyes searched Daniel's face, as if seeing him for the very first time. "Why didn't we know you could do this?" Daniel lowered his gaze, his voice quiet but steady. "Because music doesn't pay the bills," he said softly. "Mopping floors does." The honesty of his words struck everyone deeply. The employees who had once overlooked him now looked at him with respect and admiration. In that moment, Daniel was no longer invisible. He wasn't just a janitor. He was an artist, a father, a man with a story that could touch hearts. Mr. Harrison stood still for a moment, then made a decision that would change Daniel's life. "We have a charity gala next month," he said firmly. "I want you to play there. People need to hear this." Gasps and whispers filled the room. Daniel's eyes widened. "Sir, I can't. I'm just—" "No," the CEO interrupted gently, "you're more than that. You have a gift, Daniel. And gifts are meant to be shared." True to his word, Mr. Harrison sponsored Daniel to play at the gala. Not only that, he arranged for Emily, Daniel's daughter, to receive piano lessons, ensuring that the music would live on in their family. That night, when Daniel told Emily, her face lit up with joy. She threw her arms around him, her voice trembling with excitement. "See, Daddy. Mom always said you had magic in your hands." Daniel held her close, tears streaming down his face. For the first time in years, he didn't just feel like a man cleaning up after others. He felt seen, valued, and hopeful for the future. Sometimes, the greatest treasures are hidden in the most ordinary places. Daniel had been overlooked for years, dismissed as just the janitor. But one moment of courage, one act of kindness, a chance to play, revealed a gift powerful enough to move hearts and change lives. It was a reminder that every person we pass by carries a story, a struggle, and maybe even a miracle within them. And when kindness opens the door, the world gets to witness gifts that can inspire us all.